Mga kaibigan, tapos na po ang eleksyon. We have a new set of elected officials all over our country. Here is the question. Are you happy or sad with the results? Okay, wrong question. I suggest we ask this question instead. What can I control? Bakit po? The reality is many of us are looking to these elected officials to change the Philippines. Pero sa totoo lang po, if we're honest with ourselves, it's not just up to them. To really see the Philippines change, it's up to you and me. You can change the Philippines. So, pag-usapan natin, paano ba natin magagawa yan? How can you and I change the Philippines? I want to give you 3 simple things that can have great impact. First, boss, kumusta? Isang Amerikano. May Pilipino ba kayo? Walang Pilipino. So, the first thing I suggest we do is this. Are you ready? Pay your taxes. Anong ibig sabihin nun? When we go to establishments like this, good business owners must pay their taxes. How do we make sure they pay their taxes? What we can do is make sure we get a receipt. Like this. When we get an official receipt, that makes sure that the company, kung di pa natin alam to, is able to declare that they were able to make that sale, will get the VAT component also paid out, and the business therefore pays its taxes. That's how we can help make sure they do that. Get your official receipt, kahit online. Boss, thank you. Thank you for the receipt. So, speaking of paying your taxes, ito na. Pasok ko muna to. Are you paying your taxes? I'll say that again. Are you paying your taxes? So, sa ating bansa, if you're employed in a company, then the company should be doing that for you. Every year, they will actually file for you, and you should be getting your income tax return as a result of that. If you're not getting that right now, you want to make sure. Sigurado nyo nakuha niyan. Ngayon, in the Philippines, there's also self-employed or business owners. If you are in those categories, then you need to make sure you are filing it yourself. And you're probably doing that already now. But if not, please speak to an accountant. They can help you make sure that not only are you paying your taxes, but you are paying the right taxes. Speaking of right taxes, let's be honest, marami pong mga nagsa-sideline sa Pilipinas. Marami mga racket. Freelancers also. And the reality is, especially with the online space, freelancers, people who are doing all these side hustles, are not paying their taxes. I would encourage you, if you want to help change the Philippines, register yourself. You can register as a self-employed or as a sole proprietor or even as a company or a business, up to you. But the point is, get registered so that you can pay your taxes. This is how we help change the Philippines. Ngayon, if you are self-employed or you're a freelancer and maybe you're already getting a receipt after you perform a service or you sell something and you see that there's withholding tax that is taken as a result of that thing you do, paalala lang po, that's not yet paying your taxes. If you want to pay your taxes, as you talk to an accountant, put all of your income streams together, and then they will compute how much is due on the income you made. And after you compute that, whatever was withheld can now be removed from the taxes you pay. That's what you need to be able to do. So, paalala, side tip. Now, let's ask the hard question. Bakit, Edric? Why do I have to pay my taxes when many of the Filipinos might be thinking, hindi ko naman sure kung saan pupunta yan eh. It might even go to corrupt government officials. Well, let me give you reasons why we should pay our taxes. Una-una po, obviously it's our legal obligation to do that. But if you look at the Philippines, tinanong niyo ba ito? How does the Philippines fund all of the needs of the country? There's 3 main sources. Ang una po is taxes and non-tax revenue. After tax, so non-tax would be like penalties, mga ganyan po, no? So taxes and non-tax revenue. Pangalawa would be borrowing. Local borrowing and foreign borrowing is another way that the Philippines gets money to be able to pay for the things it needs to do for the country. And finally, withdrawing available cash, maybe from the past year's budget na hindi po nagastos. The number one place where the Philippines is able to fund and pay for what it needs to is guess saan po? From the taxes. That's why it's so important that we pay our taxes. The country is literally dependent on that to be able to do things for us. So kung gusto natin umasenso ang Pilipinas and we want to help effect that change, pay your taxes. Give the government the money it needs to be able to do what it's supposed to do. Pero Edric, paano nga yun? May mga tao na binubulsa lang nila yung pera. Hindi pupunta sa mga projects na dapat nakikita natin to help see the Philippines really improve and do better. Well, let me speak to you now as a Christian. I love what Jesus says in Matthew 22 verse 21. Tinanong po siya dyan about taxes back at that time in Rome. And he said something beautiful. He showed them the coin, he looked at it and he said, whose face do you see? Sabi nila, si Caesar yan. Ang sabi niya, give to Caesar what is due Caesar and give to God what is due God. So that is the reminder for all of us. Jesus himself said, we need to pay our taxes because that's what he wants us to do. What they do with it, the government, etc., is not in our control. What we do is, so we need to pay our taxes. Second, what can we do to help effect change? After talking about that with so much passion, pangalawa po, let's support local businesses. Just like this. It's important to support local businesses because as the data tells us, as of 2020, sabi po ng gobyerno, 99.5% of all businesses are MSMEs, meaning small, local businesses just like this one. And that's why it's so important. It is literally the backbone of all of the business that the Philippines has. So when we support these local businesses, we support the backbone and we can help effect change. So do that. Hindi po mahirap gawin yan. Look around you. You will see many different local businesses that we can support to help do our part in changing the country. So ano pong napag-usapan natin? Let's wind down. How can we change the Philippines? Just like these ingredients over here, I promised you 3 things. We have creamer, sugar, and coffee. I talked about paying our taxes. I talked about supporting local businesses like this one. Finally, and this is inspired by Alex Lacson's book, 12 Little Things Every Filipino Can Do or Should Do. The third thing I want to give you is this. Be the best Filipino you can be. Ulitin ko po, be the best Filipino you can be. We want to remind ourselves that it's not just up to our local government and the officials to change the country. Sa atin po. So what does it mean to be the best Filipino we can be? Do we speak highly of the Filipino? Pag tayo, pwede tayo magbiruan. We can make fun of ourselves. But when we're with others, with foreigners, do we speak highly of our fellow men, of our country? So that they see that there's a dignity, there's pride in being Pinoy. Importante po yan. What else? Do we keep our trash and put it in the right place? O nagkakalat po tayo? I suggest, simple thing, look around you and make sure we don't litter. We have such a beautiful country. Alam po natin yan. Let's keep it that way. Let's put the trash where it should be. Don't litter. And finally, in being the best Filipino we can be, this is something that I learned from the Bible and something I teach my kids over and over and over. You may have heard this maybe in another fundamentals episode, but I'll share it again. Obedience brings blessings. Ano ibig sabihin yan? Do we obey the authorities around us? The policemen, the traffic officers, the security guards. Simpleng bagay lang po. We need to help change that in the culture, that we respect these authorities so that as we respect them, they too feel dignity in what they're doing. And guess what? The Bible tells us, obedience brings blessings. So, when we mix those 3 together, paying our taxes, supporting local governments, and being the best Filipino we can be, what a beautiful mix. And this mix is what will allow you and me to help change this country. It's not just up to the newly elected officials, it's up to you and me Let me close the same way I opened up. You can change the Philippines.